Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
What's going on, everybody? Back with another Bayview Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew, joined as always by Mr. Chris Emery.
Hello. Good to see you. Good to be back.
Always good to be back.
Love podcast studio day.
Yes.
I do. It's funny. So we have guests with us today. I want to introduce them to you, and I was instructing them that if they need to cough, they need to turn away. I totally have to cough right now. It's driving me crazy because I mentioned it. Right? It's because I said something about it.
You're thinking about it?
Yeah. It's like whatever you do, don't scratch your face. You're on camera.
Yeah, I can't
also it's like I have to. So anyway. Hey, good to have you on the Bayview Podcast. We promise there will be more in-depth topics than what we just touched on. But man, each and every week we look forward to being with you. The goal, just for this to be a midweek encouragement, resource. We kind of just talk about all things life, faith. And so today we're super excited to have with us two awesome guests who we have known. So this is our first time meeting them. But we have Abby Nowicki. Did I know that?
You did.
Nice.
Great job.
And Emma Fall.
Much easier.
Much easier. So much easier. And so they are here. And just both of them work as part of a fantastic ministry, a ministry that's been around for a long time, incredible reputation. And we just felt like the work they're doing in Traverse City is important. The lives they're touching, it's just so profound. It's so cool. And we want to do everything we can to support them, to lift you guys up, and to fuel your ministry as a local church to help you continue to reach the people that you're reaching. And so we just thought it'd be great to have you on the podcast, hear a little bit about what you do, hear a little bit about your story, and so that's kind of the goal today. So let's start over here. Abby, kind of just give us the introduction. Who is Abby? You are the Area Director for Young Life. So maybe tell us a little bit what that is. Maybe people are listening that aren't familiar with Young Life. So kind of give us that big overview.
Yeah. Hey, thanks you guys so much for having us on. As Chris said, I'm Abby, and I'm the Area Director for Grand Traverse Young Life. So that includes Traverse City. Really is kind of our main area that we serve, specifically in our TCAP schools. And then we have Young Lives, which kind of serves any teen mom in the area. So if you're wondering what's Young Life, all those things, Young Life, our mission is to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. And we do that with high school and middle school age students here in Traverse City, and then teen moms. And yeah, a lot of our method is just going where kids are at. It's showing up at sporting events. It's showing up at choir concerts. It's showing up maybe in their workplace if you know they work there. Just really being where they're at and being really, really intentional. A lot of what we do is relationship. We want to build relationship with students. We believe that is the first key to earning that right with them to even have the opportunity to share about Jesus. And so we spend a lot of our time asking them lots and lots of questions, just getting to know them, getting to know their family, their likes, their dislikes, because our hope is that trust is then built with that student so that then that leader has the opportunity to start introducing Jesus to them. And then regardless, if they say yes to Jesus along the way or they say not now, we continue that relationship with them. We continue to walk with them. And then we just trust that the Holy Spirit is going to transform them. We are just simply planting seeds in the lives of students and just really trusting the Holy Spirit to do the work.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I love trusting the Holy Spirit. We don't always do a great job of that as church leaders. Sometimes we think we need to help out a lot more, and He's the Holy Spirit. Like, He's probably got a lot more going on than we know. So that's so cool. So I've been familiar with Young Life for a long time. I've spoken at some of their events, but I was not that familiar with Young Lives. In fact, when Emma announced she was becoming the director of that, I was like, awesome. That seems like a really close thing to Young Life. Are you poaching? Is this like McDonald's and MacDonald's? Right? MacDougal's, what was it from Coming to America? MacDougal's?
Yep.
Anyway, but it's not. So Young Lives operates under the umbrella of Young Life, but with a totally different focus. So, Emma, you are the Area Director of Young Lives. Is that the title? Or
Young Lives Coordinator.
Young Lives Coordinator. Okay,
yep,
so
that's my title.
Tell us a little bit about what that is and what that looks like.
Yeah, so like you guys just mentioned, Young Life has a couple of different programs here in Traverse, one of them being Young Lives, which is specifically for teen moms. We do things a little bit differently than your traditional Young Life program in that we work with moms ages 21 and under, so a little bit extending that age cutoff. But yeah, we do a couple of different things. Again, we follow a similar model to your typical Young Life program in that we are all about relationship with teen moms and that we go where the teen moms are. So whether that's, in high schools or maybe an alternative school, maybe they have a job, maybe at a, some kind of a daycare setting, wherever teen moms are, that's where we want to be. And we begin with just being in their corner. We do a couple of different things. We meet twice a month with the moms is pretty much what we do throughout the school year. We do a monthly Bible study and then have another event that is just fun for the young families to do all together. So we include the kids in that as well. We have the mentorship program, which is Young Lives' version of a Young Life leader.
Okay.
And we help moms get their hands on baby supplies if needed. We help them out just meeting basic needs, such as like food and transportation, things like that, and or connecting them with other resources in our community, which we're so blessed to have them here in Traverse that can also help them with education and life skills and all of these important things that sometimes when you become a parent at such a young age, you kind of miss that window to learn. That's kind of that. Like Chris said, 30,000 foot overview of what Young Lives is.
The oversimplification of a very detailed, in-depth ministry for both of you guys. So I definitely want to hear a little bit more about both of those because they both meet such an incredible need. But maybe even more than that, just maybe about kind of how did God get you to where you are? Like what tell us a little bit about your story, where you're from, and then how you found God leading you into this current arena of ministry, I guess is the best way. So, I mean, Abby, you're a local girl, you transplant. I know you're married. I know you got at least one child, right? One, that's your first. And she's actually downstairs in our childcare center right now, right? All right.
She is. Yeah, I am a transplant. I transplanted from the Grand Rapids area is where I grew up. Went, small town down there, and I went to Grand Valley State for my undergrad, and it was at Grand Valley that the Lord called me into ministry. I had grown up in the church my whole life, grew up Christian Reformed in the Old Holland area and the Hudsonville area, and have always loved local church, but I never felt like it was my life's calling to work in the local church. I actually went to Grand Valley with the intent of doing occupational therapy. Was my initial kind of pathway, and that was just due to some life things that had occurred, and I felt like that was what the Lord was calling me into. And so through a series of things, I had gone on a missions trip to Malawi, Africa, and that was it. That was the moment I came home, and I was like, occupational therapy is not for me. My brain was not wired that way, and it was really hard. And I also just felt this tug and the Lord was saying, hey man, I really need you to walk alongside people. And just my heart broke for people who didn't know Jesus. And so that's where my spark, my love for ministry really started. And that's also where I was introduced to Young Life, not in Africa, but when I came home. And that was my first exposure. I've never been a Young Life kid per se. I didn't grow up with it. I had a friend of mine that said, hey, I think you should consider being a Young Life leader. We have this training coming up. You should just show up. So I was a sophomore in college. I showed up to leader training, and I haven't turned back since. I led the rest of my college time, and then at the end of college was like, man, I want to do this. This feels right. I just feel really called to this. So, started the process of looking for a job in Young Life, and there was an opening up here for a Young Life church partnership, and that's really what drew me up here initially. So I worked for a church over in Glen Arbor, Glen Lake Church, and it was amazing. I loved it. And we're still there, and we still love it. And that's what kind of got me up here. And through that whole process, as Chris mentioned, I met my husband. He's a Young Life kid, so he grew up in it. He loves it. He's one of the best leaders I know.
Nice.
I am biased because he is my husband,
Sure,
but he's an
sure.
amazing leader.
You have to be. I mean,
Yeah.
it's required.
But yeah, we met through Young Life in 2016, and we've been married since 2018, and we have a beautiful daughter now. So that's the very short version. There's lots of other pieces in that, but of how I ended up here. And yeah, I've been here since 2016 now.
Very cool. Very cool. So obviously, you probably share a similar story to a lot of individuals that we go to college, we have a career path in mind, something that maybe we've always been planning for, and then God kind of comes in and says, I don't think so. We're going to go this way, which is so cool. And that's just kind of how the being called process often seems to go. So as you've done that, tell us a little bit about, how do you, I don't say acquire, because that sounds like customer acquisition, but how do you initially make contact with a student? What's the long-term plan? Do you guys then try and connect with local churches? How does that whole process work for a student that may be coming through your ministry?
Yeah. The process feels weird, I would say, like speaking it out loud, but for leaders, it feels really natural. Could be quite literally seeing a kid at a football game who's maybe standing by himself.
Cool.
And that could be the very first contact that leads to this long journey walking with a student. It could look like showing up in a lunchroom as schools allow us, and just sitting down. And always our first intention with students is not to immediately tell them about Jesus.
Right.
We go because we want to tell them about Jesus, but our initial contact is just to simply be with them, see them, hear them, talk with them. And then once kind of students are in Young Life, I guess, or WyldLife, our middle school program, then, we have our weekly clubs, which is just more of an outreach, our fun space, where kids will kind of get an overview of a gospel story or interaction. And then we invite them, if they're really wanting more, they come to Campaigners, which is our Bible study. And then the journey deepens from there. I think I know our ultimate goal is to get kids connected to the local church. Young Life is simply an avenue that we hope will drive and guide kids to be part of our local church and our local community again. And some of the kids we interact with used to be part of a local church and have stepped away or walked away for various reasons. And our hope is that whether it's to bring them back to the local church they've been a part of, or maybe explore something else. But yeah, our hope is that in Young Life, we can connect with our local churches so that as we're thinking about these kids that we know that may be stepping in for the first time, that we can say, hey, we have a relationship with here, here, and here. And let me go with you. Let's just see. I know these people here. They're good people. I want to go with you and show up. So that's a lot of our heart of connecting with our local churches as we journey with students. Because in the same way that we're building trust with them, we're building trust with churches, and therefore kids can build trust with church again.
Very cool.
Is kind of our hope.
Very cool. Very cool. I don't think anybody would deny that the entire platform of how we do ministry, it's always changing. Culture is always changing. but I view the changes in ministry and the way we engage on the rapid change track, very much like technology. Technology is getting more technical, but it's changing faster than ever. And it feels like ministry is doing that as a whole. I think COVID did not cause it, but I think it accelerated it. I think it pulled back the curtain on some of our weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And it also changed people's view of what they need. And I'm sure students are that way. They were already, my read is they were already starting to slide towards, digital engagement's fine. My friends that I chat with on Xbox and through Snapchat, those are my friends. And they're starting to just kind of isolate, which probably makes your job, both of your jobs, harder. So, Andrew, I mean, you work with our students. How are you seeing that play out, even through your seat? And, and how similar is that between what you two both are doing?
Yeah, it's definitely shifted to way more relational. Like, it is. Like, it not gone are the days, but it's like, it feels like saying that where it's like the idea of just inviting them, just having them show up, and then essentially, like, lack of a better term, shoving Jesus down their throat. Like, it tends to, I don't know, you would probably agree with this. Teens have a really good BS radar. That feels, I can say that on this podcast, right?
Well, I figured there's two groups of people listening.
Yeah.
The ones that don't know what that means, so they don't know to be offended, and the ones that know what that means, and they're fine
Basically,
with it.
teenagers are really good at what's fake and what's real.
Yeah.
And if you're coming at it from a standpoint of we can all have the same mission, same goal, same vision, right? The same idea of like we want students to know Jesus. But the more and more you find out who Jesus is, the more and more you see the relational side of who he is. And it's like tenfold, and I think you would agree with this too, like it's a tenfold more joy and excitement around someone you have a relationship with that comes to know Jesus versus the kid who raised their hand not really knowing what's going on, said yes to Jesus, and now you're walking around being like, man, did they really know?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of that. I think that we're seeing just it's easy to isolate. It's easy to spend more time on your phone. It's easy to claim connection. And some of that is true. Like you can be connected, but the real is so much more valuable now. And so even in the local church, like we're just seeing that like the things we're doing and the why that we're doing it has to totally come way more from a space of like, do I actually know this person versus like, this is just someone who allows me to claim a number. And I think that's where we're seeing the church a great shift in that. Gone, it feels like gone. This is what I was going to say. Gone are the days of the claim of a massive student ministry that has 100 kids in it, and I know the names of 6. Well, I'd argue you have a student ministry of 6. Like that's kind of what we're beginning to see is that the real is always going to outweigh the attractional. It's always going to outweigh the flash, the bang, and there's just so much good in knowing the person versus, I think, to like even what Young Life tries to fight against of just kind of treating it like this factory style mentality, in the door, out the door. They know Jesus, good.
Yeah. We
want them to know Jesus, but we want to know them.
So are you both finding then that it's no longer just the challenge? 'Cause I did student ministries for a long time. It's no longer just the challenge of establishing a relationship. Are you finding that now it's gone backwards to where you have to introduce them to the fact that they need relationships? Are you finding that because are they just like, no, I'm good, or is there another layer between you and the students, or is that just more?
I at least see more and more like that. I think they're desiring relationship.
Okay.
I just don't know if they know how to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's why like when you introduce yourself to a kid and the next time you see them, you know their name. There's so much value in that. We're like, oh, I'm not just another person. Like you actually want to know. Like at least I find in a lot of my interactions, like that first conversation is very guarded. It's very like, I'm just giving you one word answers.
Yeah.
I'm just, you're kind of weird. Like, I don't know, like that whole vibe. And then, but either by the time the evening's done or the interaction's done, the game's done, whatever it is, or the next time you see them, there's like when you can recall and you can interact and you can pick up where you left off, there's almost like this wide-eyed, like, whoa, you care.
Yeah, I would say 100%. They want relationship. They're still trying to figure out how to ask for that. And there's something really beautiful about watching that guard come down. You know, we've had a couple of new kids show up to club, and one girl, you know, she just kind of stood in the back. She was I'm really scared. I was like, never met you before. That's a really vulnerable thing to say. But it was this acknowledgement of trying to figure out how to enter into a space, knowing inside of her she wanted that, but it was trying to connect the two and say, okay, this is safe. I can do this. And then you slowly just watch that kind of dissolve a little bit, and they do see that it's good. And then it kind of goes from there, and you get to continue building on that with them.
Very cool. Last question, then I want to move on and hear a little bit from Emma. But as you're describing, and as we all are aware, everything is changing within ministry scope. Is there a bit of a challenge, because do you find that the kids are beginning to simply mimic what they're watching mom and dad do? I mean, how many mom and dads are, it's like we're fighting relationship, but are we seeing mom and dads even begin to kind of withdraw and just let digital engagement replace true relationship? I don't know if that's something you're seeing or if you're feeling that.
I don't know if I'm necessarily feeling that in terms of what kids are viewing. I think, at least from my perspective, students that we've interacted with, their parents are almost too involved in a lot of things.
Okay.
Not every kid, because we have both spectrums for sure. I don't know if it's necessarily students watching that. I think it's students watching students.
Okay, good.
And I think it still comes down to that peer level that we've known for years and years to be true.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I would see it more. And that we're seeing a little bit of that shift happening at our school that we're doing ministry at right now. There's peers starting to step out, and so there's a little bit more boldness coming from the students that once were like, I'm okay being in the back, don't ask me to do anything, and now they're like, wait, I'm here too.
Yeah.
So I would still say it's more peer-to-peer versus parent, from my perspective.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense.
No, I would agree. I think there's a level of maybe when it comes to things like church attendance or church importance, like some of that kind of stuff, I could see a student is at least going to gauge the parents' interests and view it as like, oh, mom and dad are prioritizing this. I do think that's a thing, but I would agree. I think more and more it's what are my peers doing?
Yeah. Okay.
Like, because a lot of it feels like it's gauged on, am I going to be accepted or not? Like, and is this going to ostracize me? Is this going to make me feel like a loner even more than I already do? Like, there's so much of that I think plays into choices and decisions. But the parent role, I don't think has changed when it comes to value they place on things like church and Bible and prayer and stuff in the home. I think that is still just as valuable.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. I heard a speaker say one time that stay-home parents don't create go-to-church kids. And coming out of COVID, we've definitely seen that. I mean, we talk at the larger church level all the time about, we're exploring even the value, or it's going to be a topic we have on a future podcast, of Sunday morning live streams. Are they hurting or helping? I mean, they were necessary for, COVID and early, but now it's like I think we have to reevaluate. Are we giving people permission to isolate and not engage? So I don't know. Deeper conversation for a whole nother podcast. So Abby, real quick, say a student is listening, or say their parents are listening, or a student hears about Young Life. What's a great first step? Hey, I want to get involved in Young Life. What's a step? What's an entry point for them?
I mean, there's a couple of different things. I mean, for sure, reach out through our email. Our admin is awesome at getting people connected. I would say, depending on if they're a high schooler or middle schooler, we do have an active club happening on Mondays. And then middle school is happening at East Middle School after school. So that one's a little bit trickier if your student's not at East right now.
Right.
Yeah, but I would say just reach out through either our Instagram page or our website, grandtraverseyounglife.org. That's really a good first step if you don't already know somebody who's involved who could kind of be that middle person for you too.
Cool.
Are those clubs at all, like at West and Central? There's a high school club at both?
So right now we're active. We consider ourselves active at Central High School, and then TC High has, they meet during lunch.
Okay.
And then Central meets on Monday nights. We meet at the Intersection building right now on Faith Reform's campus right there. But we are Monday nights at 7:07.
Cool. 7:07.
7:07.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure and have Brock put your website in the comments. That way, any parents listening or any adults just want to know more, go to the website. You can dig in and find out more. So transition from that, Young Life, focuses on middle schoolers, high schoolers, but then there's this whole other incredible demographic, and it's so important, and there's such a great need, and it's what Young Lives does. And so Young Lives focuses on young mothers. Now, is it young single mothers? Is that
not
typical?
Necessarily.
Okay, so that's not okay.
Yeah, many of them are, but not all.
Okay.
In fact, we have a mom getting married this summer.
No way. Very cool.
Yep. So not a requirement.
Okay.
Either one. Yep.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about, how Young Lives, how you got into it, what's your Jesus story. You are a local girl because your parents are some of my dearest friends, and I know they're both long-term Traverse City, but growing up here, how did God bring you to where you are now? You're married. You have helped us do something today. You've helped us hit a new high mark on the number of guests we've had, because we have 2.5 guests here today.
That's so awesome.
Let's go.
Yeah, if you're watching the video version, this is not too many donuts. This is Baby Due in May.
Nice. All right. So, tell us your story a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Traverse. My family has been here for multiple generations. My grandparents are here. Very lucky to have a lot of relatives in the area. Graduated from West in 2015, and then went to a performing arts college thinking that I was going to pursue music, talking about your life taking a different path. Quickly realized that wasn't for me. I love music. I still do. That's still a big part of my life, but just not something that I wanted to commit my career and my whole life to. So then I came home and I did a gap year. Didn't know what I was doing. And then eventually the following year enrolled at Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids, because they gave me a lot of scholarship money. So there you go.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Money talks.
Yep. And especially someone, who didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was a good, they have a lot. They offered a variety of things that interested me. So I started out in social work, I bounced around from program to program, and then eventually landed on child and adolescent services, thinking that was broad enough that I could take a couple of different avenues. And part of that degree requirement was I needed to do a practicum, which is like a miniature internship, and then I needed to do a formal internship. And so I was researching different places in Grand Rapids that I could do my practicum, and this organization popped up that worked with teen moms and their kids. And at the time I had zero interest in working with teenagers. They scared me, quite frankly. But they specifically needed people to come help in their child care, part of what they did. And I was like, that would be amazing. I love little kids. I've always, loved kids, loved working with kids. And so I'm like, perfect, I'll do that. And in that process of doing that practicum, God just totally changed my heart. And I loved working with the moms too. I loved getting to know them and interacting with teenagers, and just totally changed what I thought I wanted for my life. And so then I actually ended up going back and doing my internship at that same place, and then ended up working there for a couple of years, and just loved it. I loved the moms. in my opinion, one of the best parts about working with teen parents is that you get both, right? You get the little kids, you get the precious little babies and fun toddlers and elementary school age, and then you also get, these young adults too. So I love that I get to work with both. But yeah, my husband Heath is also from here, but we didn't date until we were in our 20s. And then got married and moved up here, and have loved being back here. We have a 20-month-old Lucy. She'll be 2 this summer, and then got another one on the way. So
amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then how I started working for Young Lives, I, similar to Abby, no experience with Young Life whatsoever growing up here, and I really didn't know a whole lot about Young Life. Heath was actually a Young Life leader for a couple of years, but beyond that, I personally didn't have any connections. But then when they started thinking about starting the Young Lives program up here, I was like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. So I started as a volunteer. I was a mentor. I wanted to be a part of something that I could, as a mom of little ones, bring my kids with me. And that was a really perfect fit. And then eventually they were like, you know what, this program has grown enough. We need this to be a staffed position. And I applied, and here we are.
No way.
Yeah. So that was August of last year.
Yep.
So,
I knew you're fairly new into it. But so right now you have, how many moms are within your care right now? I think last you told me 15-ish.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. About 15. It's interesting because we, like I mentioned, we meet twice a month. So all 15 moms don't necessarily come to our youth group or our Bible studies or our events. But how we measure it is kids known by name in our area. So how many students do you have that you're in their life, they know you, and you're praying for them, you're supporting them in ways that they need. And then it's a bonus if they show up to your events.
Very
and
cool.
Luckily, we do have moms showing up every time. We have yet to have 0 moms show, so that's great.
So these are teen moms. What's the oldest age side of that?
21.
21. Okay, so young as they are to 21.
Yeah.
So how would a young mom that maybe hears about Young Lives and recognize that, man, I need that in my life, how would they go about finding you, engaging, and beginning to enter into what you all do?
Yeah, so like Abby shared, I mean, Young Life, our admin would do an amazing job of connecting with me directly, or you can just, reach out to me, or like I said, we meet twice a month. We meet over at Table 12 Coffee House.
Okay.
That's where most of our events take place, and that happens on Tuesdays. So Mondays is Young Life, and then Tuesdays is Young Lives.
Okay.
And so first and third Tuesdays of every month.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Good. That's super cool. How has that been? It's a newer ministry here in the area. What are you finding are some of the I don't know. I guess this exists in all areas. What are some of the ups? What are some of the challenges? What are the downs? Like how are you beginning to see this now that you're 6 months, 7 months into this? What do you begin to experience within the realms of this ministry?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you guys were talking about COVID and just how that is still impacting ministry with students. Because in the teen mom world, it's still affecting a lot of things. One thing that kind of came from COVID is just this accessibility to online education, which is a really cool thing. If you are a teenager and you're having a baby, that is sometimes the best option, and it allows them to continue with their education. At the same time, the flip side of that is that all of a sudden teen moms became really hard to find because you can't, I would say 80 to 90% of the moms we serve are going to school online.
Okay.
So it's not as simple as showing up to a lunchtime.
Right.
It's not as simple as going to a football game. Like all those things, it's just they became really hard to find and really isolated. So that I would say has probably been the biggest challenge.
Okay.
And I would assume probably in other Young Lives programs around Michigan and just in the U.S. in general, it just became really hard to find moms.
Yeah, interesting.
So we've had to really get creative in how we meet them. So we've been able to make a lot of really great connections in our community with Thrive Medical Clinic and Single Mom. There's an alternative online school called SOS here in town, which has been amazing. So we get referrals that way, for the most part. And so that, I would say that's probably been the biggest challenge, is finding moms in our community. But yeah, I mean, some of the high points, I mean, my goodness, it's our growth has just been exponential this year. It's been amazing. And for me, the best part is seeing the moms come from such an isolated place. They're experiencing so much social anxiety and fear of judgment because they're a young parent, and all those things, all those like emotional barriers that they have up. It's amazing to me to watch those kind of start to come down with their mentor and during Bible study, and even in their connections with each other. It's like suddenly, oh, I'm not the only person in my life who has experienced being a teen parent. Like, I actually know other people who are in the same boat and can understand. And then, of course, every time that we have a mom who is really interested in Jesus and, like, really curious and, like, oh, God doesn't, like, judge me or doesn't think I'm a bad person, like, because of my circumstances. Like, he's actually on my side. I have somebody who cares about me, and I love having those conversations with moms.
That's awesome. So you use the word referral. So if somebody's listening and they maybe know a teen mom that they could really benefit from what you do, referral, they just go again to the website. Is there an avenue through there to get their name to you, and then you guys reach out to them? For sure.
Yep, they can use that same email. That's just to our admin in our area. Or too, if it's someone I go to Bayview, so if it's someone here who attends Bayview, they can also just connect with me directly too. Yep. Good.
Then how about someone's listening? They're like, ooh, I'd like to be a mentor. What does that look like? What does a mentor role do? Like what are some of those concepts?
Yeah, we definitely always have a need for a mentor because it is one of those volunteer positions that's definitely a bigger commitment. But yeah, mentorship basically looks like, I mean, it can look a lot of different ways, but, we just ask that you're connecting with a mom a couple times a month outside of our regular programming. And that can be, when I was a mentor, I actually brought the mom that I was connected with to Bayview's Bible study, which was a really cool thing. But it can look like even just picking them up and taking them to club. I mean, that time in the car, sometimes the best conversations come from just being in the car together. So it can look a lot of different ways. But if that is something that interests you, I would definitely say just reach out to me directly. Maybe we can even include like my email or something
we'll
too.
Get your email in
but yeah, there's just a questionnaire and all the background checks, of course, with working with students. But we always need more mentors on our team.
Cool. And so it sounds like basically a mentor's greatest role is making sure that young mom feels seen, heard, valued, and supported.
Yeah.
In a wide variety of ways, which is just so awesome, so cool. So, I love that. I don't know, Andrew, anything you were wanting to ask?
I would love to hear from both. I'm just really interested in the obviously what we've talked about, the guys that you do. You spend so much time relationship building and a lot of that. Do you have, maybe each you could share like a story or like a moment where you're like, thanks God, like that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, like just that interaction with a mom or with a student where it's just like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like one of those just cool kind of mind-blowing ministry moments. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but
versus, because we're all in ministry, so we all know that the number of moments of like, what am I doing?
Yes.
Those are plentiful, right? Like we have a list of those, and it seems like sometimes when those begin to pile up, God comes swooping in with this one moment of like, okay, I got you. That's
because it's special. You use the term planting seeds.
Yeah. Like
that's what we're doing. We have an amazing opportunity to plant seeds constantly, and there's so many of those seeds that we will never get to see grow. But it's special when you do see the seed sprout. And so that's what I'm kind of asking. Has there been a moment where you're just like, that you can share with us that was like, that's awesome?
Yeah, I have one that came to mind when you said that. So like I just shared, part of when I was a mentor is I would bring the mom that I was partnered with to Bayview's Bible study. and I'm going to out myself here. Sometimes I would not listen to what I was supposed to listen to or watch what I was supposed to watch before coming to the Bible study. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, I told the mom, I'm like, okay, you need to help keep me accountable. Like, text me and ask if you have watched the sermon before Bible study. And, we kind of just like laughed it off. And then sure enough, you guys, 2 days later, she texts me and she goes, this is just a reminder to watch the sermon before Bible study next week. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, you start with pouring in to this person and then they start pouring into you. And it's so beautiful to have those roles shift. And she had something to bring to the table too. They all do. But how cool. It's such an encouragement. I spent a lot of time trying to encourage her and, in her walk with the Lord, and then to have her turn around and do that for me, it was like, wow, this is so cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
What a great story. We'll talk more about your lack of willingness to listen to the sermon later. As your pastor, I have a responsibility to have that combo.
Oh, that's so good, though.
How about you, Abby? What's a win that just kind of stands out to you?
Oh, man. This was a girl that I had been walking alongside since I met her in 7th grade. Not in Traverse City. So I used to be a leader in Glen Lake School. So this is a girl that I met back then. She's now in college now, which makes me feel really old. But yeah, I met her as a 7th grader and it was just so sweet. And, middle schoolers are just so fun. And we just got to kind of walk alongside and do life together. And kind of the whole time when you're walking with students, a little bit of like, how much are you really understanding, or what's sticking, what's all those things. And so she graduated and I knew kind of where she was at with her faith and with the Lord. And it was good. I knew she was understanding things. She was growing, but there was not a huge level of commitment. And kind of fast forward, she's in college now and she's really involved in her campus ministry, like really involved. She loves it. She's craving it. She sees the community. She's diving in. And I would say in the time that I knew her, as a middle schooler and as a high schooler, she was in partly maybe because, her parents dropped her off and was like, have fun. Yeah. But for the first time, I got to see her be in because she wanted to be in. Yeah. And it was just so cool to see, right? It's this seed planting of, okay, 6 years, 7 years of knowing you and just walking, asking questions, trying to, so that has been really cool. And now her parents are now leaders themselves. Wow. And so it's just this really cool, seeing this lifelong journey and her parents seeing the impact that faithful ministry can have on the lives of students, even if, they're not being transformed in middle school or high school, but that it's so important. And it's really cool to see them become adults and start really taking ownership of their life and taking ownership of their faith.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That is such a cool story. And it made me think a little bit of what Andrew was saying earlier, that, long gone are the days of fill a seat, check a box, numbers, ministry is the long game. Like, this isn't the short game. It's the long game. And sometimes there's quick results and sometimes it takes years. But that's the beautiful story behind it all. So that is so cool. Well, I don't know if you're listening and maybe you've been caught up in this wave of negativity of this next generation is the worst. They're useless. There's no hope. Man, I talk to so many people, and they don't use those words, but everything about their attitude and demeanor just screams like, it's hopeless, it's hopeless. I hope today reminds you of something. There are people fighting in the trenches. There are men and women who have accepted the call to go in and engage this next generation at the most critical levels and to walk with them, love them, and point them to Jesus. And so I know that we are blessed to have you guys on the podcast today, but much beyond that, our area is so blessed to have you two and your teams working and doing ministry and pouring into these lives in the way you do. And we love what you do, and we will continue to pray for you, support you, and just whatever we can to help hold you up as you continue to do these important, incredible ministries in our area. So thank you for what you do. It's a very big deal. So, hey, thank you for being with us. Hopefully today was encouraging, but also informative. So certainly go over to the website that we'll drop in the comments for Young Life here in the area. You can get to both of these ministries through there. If you want to be a mentor, if you know somebody to refer, if just whatever, you just want to know more how to support the ministries, go there, reach out. We are a big advocate of the concept of do something. Do something. If we see the evil, we see the problem, don't sit around just gripe about it. Do something. And this might be a great avenue for some of you to explore and support these awesome ladies and the work they're doing. So thank you, Abby, Emma. Thank you for being with us today on the Bayview Podcast. It's been a super cool time. So with that being said, if you have not done so, click the subscribe button, usually at the bottom of your screen, depending on what platform you're on. But that way you just never miss an episode. Talked with somebody the other day. They're like, well, I just go search for it every time. Don't do that. Click subscribe. Why are you doing that? Just click subscribe. We'll come right to you. So, duh. Hey, other than that, we will be right here each and every Wednesday. Just looking forward to our time with you. This is Chris, Andrew, Abby, Emma, signing off for today, and we'll see you next time around.